Hey elephants, teleporter, you know it, I know it, let's make it. Okay, welcome to the creative world. As you can see, I just created a quick teleportation pad, which I just broke, and it's this destination over here to the left. So now that we have this, let's try to recreate the one in Pseudo Elephant Trials. So let's start with the particles, since there's no particles here. And it's surprisingly easy. The command for particles is actually really easy to learn. So basically, what we do is we want to stand on the place where we want our particles. We want to press F3 so we can see our coordinates. And then what we do is do /particle. And then if you press space, Minecraft will automatically just put a bunch of options for you. I usually use the arrow keys and then just press tab for the one you want. There's a bunch of them, so feel free to experiment. For the sake of this experiment, I'm just going to be using the effect one, since it's the one that we use in Pseudo Elephant Trials. So let's keep that on. Now, this symbol right here is called the tilde. I don't know how to pronounce it in English. And basically what it does is it makes coordinates relative to whoever is executing the command. So in this case, I'm executing the command. If I were to put 3 tildes right here, and this is exactly the same as my current coordinates. So if I were to run the command here, the particles would be exactly where I'm standing. If I then move and run the command again, it's again going to be exactly where I'm standing. We don't want this in this scenario because we want it to be exactly above the teleportation pad. So instead, what we're going to do is copy the commands over here at the top where it says block. So let's copy those, 152, 56, -184. Now those are your XYZ coordinates. The next 3 numbers of that command is the delta, the range in which you want it. So in this case, it's 152x plus or minus what number? In this case, plus or minus 0.2. Then the next one is y, so it's 56 plus or minus what? Let's say plus or minus 3. And then on the z, we also want a plus or minus 0.2. Now, when you're typing this command, you want to make sure you don't accidentally type in any extra spaces, because it will actually screw up your command. So make sure that you only press 1 space between each parameter. And then after that, the 2 numbers we are left with is the speed of the particles, which is the next number. So 10, it's a good speed. And then the number of particles that we want. So let's say 100. So now if we execute the command, you can see how it's gonna look. If we increase the number, that's a lot more particles. If we decrease it, it's a lot less. Pretty self-explanatory. It's super fun to play around this, like with this. So please feel free to change the number. See what happens if you increase the range. Like we could go crazy. We could put 3 and 3 here. And then see how that looks, maybe 1,000 particles, and then it's like, ooh, now it's like an entire room that's getting filled with particles. I don't know. It's up for you to play. And for now, we're just gonna keep this version, not this one, but the one. Let's say 20 particles. I think that's pretty good. And we're gonna copy this, and then what we want is we want the particles to be on all the time. So let's get ourselves a command block, and now that we have it, let's actually place it down and put our command inside. So let me just copy and paste it. And now that it's in here, we want it to be always active, and we want it to be a repeat block. This way, the particles are always going to be there. So as you can see, this might be a little bit too exaggerated, might be too many particles. So what we want to do instead is decrease the number. This is a thing, like you got to play around with this. You got to know what looks good, and it's just trial and error. So see, that looks a little bit better now. I still think they go maybe a little bit too high. So what you could do is either decrease the range to like 2. So now it should be less high. Or you could also decrease the y coordinate, which will also lower it. So any of those 2 works. So I'm going to keep this. And this is our first step. Now for the second part, what we want is some type of system that basically detects whenever the player is standing on that. And then once we know the player is standing, we want to teleport him and play a sound. And that is also really simple and really easy to do. Okay, so with that, let's actually build the contraption that will teleport our player. So since we have a condition, we're gonna use the /execute command, which allows us to test for different things in Minecraft. So our condition is the player standing on that sea lantern? Not on any sea lantern, because we could have more sea lanterns on our map. So on that specific sea lantern. So how does that work? Basically, we're gonna want to repeat command block. Right now it's not gonna have anything, and it's gonna be always active because this is the command that's gonna be checking for our condition, okay? So this is gonna be like, is the player standing here the entire time? And now for the command that it's actually gonna run, let's stand on this sea lantern and put our coordinates on, and let's open our console, our chat, sorry. So basically what we want to use is a command called /execute, which will allow you to check for conditions. But the way the execute command works is that it uses the fact that different entities in Minecraft can run commands. So let's say if me and a friend were playing Minecraft together, or even me and him, right? We're playing Minecraft together. So if I type into the chat, say hi, say hello, as you can see, it says Pseudo Ale says hello. But if I make command block do the exact same thing, it just says @. This is because different entities run different commands. So knowing that, we can execute, like the /execute command will make use of that to execute the command from a different entity's perspective. So if I use /execute, I could actually execute from the point of view of the armor stand over there if I wanted to. That's just an example. So what we're gonna do is say /execute as @a. This is just saying that whatever I want you to execute, I want you to execute it as every player. So if it's me and 3 friends and I type in say hello as the command, then it's gonna pop up as if we all said say hello, okay? So this is what as @a means. But then we wanna be more specific because we wanna make sure that the player is standing on this sea lantern, right? So what we're gonna do is say, okay, so execute /execute as @a, and then what we do is we open bracket, and as you can see, we got a bunch of weird options. Don't worry about it. Very simple. What we're gonna do is give it an X, Y, Z position, just coordinates. And what you're saying, whatever goes inside these brackets, because you're gonna have 2 of them, is like the properties that your player needs to have. So you're saying execute as a player who has the X position at 152, which is my current block coordinate. You can see it on the top left in F3 if you press F3. Who has that X position, who has the Y position of 56, and who has a Z position of -184. Now you would think this would work by itself, but now you actually need something very similar to the particles, which is your delta. So you say dx for delta x, the range. In this case, I don't want range because it's a 1 block gap, right? We only have this 1 sea lantern. So I don't want it to be occupying a bigger space. I just want it to execute whenever the player is here, standing in the lantern. So what we do is we put dx 0, dy 0, and dz 0. Because we don't want any extra deltas. We just want it to be these coordinates over here. So now that we have that, we actually have completed our selector. This is called a selector. So now you're basically saying to the execute command, you're saying, okay, I want you to execute this command as any player who has this position over here that we just specified. So that's part 1. Now, once you execute as that player, we want to execute it at the coordinates of himself. Basically, at S is at self. But the way this works is, since we already said execute as everyone, when we say at self, everyone's going to be executing their own command at their own position. So remember how I said that the tilde was like spatial coordinates relative to the player? When we say execute the command at self, at myself, you're telling it to use the coordinates of the player executing it. And right now, everyone on this block is executing it. So we can say at self, and that way we can use relative coordinates, which will make our life a lot easier. Okay, so now that we say execute as everyone at myself, at my coordinates, then we want to check for the block. If the block, and then we want to say underneath me. So basically what we say is on my X, on my Y level, but one beneath me, and on my Z, which is the tilde. So this is relative coordinates, so it's wherever you're standing. My X, my Y, -1, which you can do. You can basically subtract or add any number you want to these coordinates. And then if the block at these coordinates, which is 1 underneath me, is a Minecraft sea lantern, and then if all of that is true, then I want you to run a command. So this is a spot where you can teleport your player. So right now you would type in here TP at self, and then what you would do here is put the coordinates over here, which are 152, 57, and -177. Okay, so now if I run this here, nothing happens because I'm not standing on the sea lantern. The first section is not executing. But if I repeat that same command and I'm standing on the sea lantern, you'll see that I get teleported. Now that's already a huge plus because you're basically checking for that. And you don't necessarily need to teleport. The way the execute command works is after you write run, now you can type in any other Minecraft command. So it's basically like nested commands. You're saying execute if this is true, it's like a condition, and then run this other command. And you could even execute, like you could even do another execute in here. So you can nest them if you wanted to. But for our purposes, we just need the teleport. So we're just gonna keep that. So let's copy that, Command Z. So now we have that command, we can paste it over here. And since it's always active, now whenever any player stands here, boop, they get teleported. And you'll notice if they're jumping, I couldn't do it that time, but you have to be standing on the lantern. Like that's part of the condition. Well, I can't do it. Anyways, you do have to be standing on the lantern. And you can check if we put another lantern somewhere, it doesn't teleport us. Like it has to be that lantern over there. It could even just be by coordinates. Like you don't really have to check by the lantern, but I thought it would be a good explanation and a little bit more in depth. But anyways, so that's the TP. Now we wanted to make a sound. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab another command block. This time we're gonna make it conditional. Basically what conditional means is that the command block behind it has to execute for this one to execute. And we wanna make it a chain command and always active so we don't have to power it ourselves. So this way, whenever this one executes, this will execute. And just so that you understand what conditional means, if I say hi, as you can see, there's no hi. If I execute this, boom, say hi, okay? If I don't make this conditional, it's actually gonna run every single tick the one behind it runs. So it's just gonna spam hi. We don't want that. Yeah, basically conditional will make it so that the command only executes once the run part runs. So the execute part is always running, but there's no run because the condition is not true. But once the run part runs, so the TP in this case, then the chain command block will run. Now what we want to do is we want to play a sound. So there's a command called playsound, and we want to play the sound an Enderman does. Okay, so playsound, Enderman teleport. We want it as an player for everyone, because we want everyone to hear when he teleports. And then it wants us to put some coordinates. So what you could do here if you want it to be local is you could do an execute command. Let's do that actually. Let's just write execute. And then let's just say as at A. And then we just run as at A and at self. Okay? So this is the exact same thing as it was before. So I want you to execute it as every player at their position. And then we want to run play sound. And this time there was no condition, but you're executing it as them, which is another cool part of the execute command. And then we do play sound, the Enderman, player, at myself. And then we can do local coordinates since every player is getting their own sound. And then you gotta specify a volume and a pitch. So I just do, I think that works actually. Let me just check it. I'm not too sure. Yeah. See, now we got the sound. And that is it. These 3 commands, it made our teleport. Of course, you can make it more intricate if you wanted to. You can start chaining more commands here and be like, yeah, let's just do stuff. But we only need these 3 for this example. So there we go. We just finished. It took 3 command blocks, 1 for the particles, 2 for checking and teleporting, and then 3 for the sound. The setup is this simple, and now you got teleportation to wherever you want. I hope that you understood the execute command works. I tried explaining it to the best of my abilities, but of course maybe there's some parts that you don't understand yet. So please do let me know in the comments if you have any more questions. Now, if you want any other mechanic from our map explained, please also do let me know in the comments below. And or if it's anything, if you just want to see anything, just let me know. I might try to make it depending on how hard it is. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. I hope this helped you in some sort of way. Subscribe if you liked what you see, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.